Good morning.
Good morning. How was your break?
Um, did I have a break?
Yeah, you went to Bath.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was very nice. Yeah. I only went
Congratulations.
for I only went for a day.
All
So
right, I thought it was a whole week. All right, okay. Do you know what? We've got in too quick. We got in too quick. We ain't done the intro. We ain't done the intro.
back up.
Back up, back up, back up. I apologize profusely. That's what happens when you take time off. It takes you a while to get back into the groove. So here we are. Two legends, Dominic Nelson Ashley and Nicola Morgan. Happiness is Easy podcast. Why is it called that? Because happiness ain't that easy. Facts.
Good morning. Welcome everybody to Happiness is Easy once again, because
Mhm.
we all know it's not. How are you doing, Dominic?
I'm all right. I'm a local celebrity. I'm a local celebrity.
Well, naturally, but what are you a celebrity for this time?
I've been on the telly. I've been on the TV locally. BBC Look North. That's what it's all about. People have been recognizing me in the street. People I don't even know. That's it.
Rocking the show. What were you on telly for?
Oh, well, basically, um, there's this project called Middlesbrough Uncovered where it's a guided walk for about an hour around the local area saying, like, hey, back in the day, this stuff happened in this area. Back in the day, this stuff happened in this area. Like there's a park, which is a lovely park, but it used to be a burial ground. There used to be 11,000 people buried there. 5,000 of them were kids. It's like, and you're walking around with the headphones going, like, oh, right, oh, that's interesting. And so I'm one of the voices on there going like, hey, with his northern accent going, hey, it's the voice of Middlesbrough. Tell you what's happening, what used to happen. So yeah, so they interviewed me for that, and off the back of that, some people have gone, "Hey, I recognize you. I recognize you." That's how it is. I haven't seen it. I didn't see it myself, but that's how it goes. Obviously, it's inflated my ego to another planet. Obviously, obviously, or is it just let out the person I've always been? That's
Your
it.
natural inner stardom,
Now, natural inner stardom,
which I
which
don't think anyone could disagree with.
However, how am I tying this into today's conversation is your next question.
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah, probably was my next question.
Today's conversation is about money. And
Yes.
as people often say, having money and status, etc., and power just lets you be the person you've always been. So if you see a rich person and they're a complete a-hole, it's like it hasn't isn't the money that's made them an a-hole. They were always an a-hole, but it's just that they're having the status and the money has just given them the opportunity to demonstrate who they've always been.
Interesting idea. Yeah, and Dominic and I decided that we're going to talk about money because we don't tend to. I don't know about you, but I don't tend to equate money and happiness very much. But why I wanted to talk about it was because if you're not healthy about your money, it's quite damaging because you're just always really stressed if you're not getting it right with your money. And so I wondered what your take would be on that.
But my take is that right, if you look at relationship breakdown, you look at the stats. It goes like, okay, what's in the top two? Right? What's in the top two? Money's in the top two, right? You look at like what are the major stresses in people's lives? You know, money's always up there, right? And at school, how much education do people go about? Like, hey, this is how you look after your money. It's not there. They'll teach you about English, they'll teach you about maths, but they won't tell you about how to control your money and how to look after your money. Um, and then there is so much emotion tied up in money. You know, having it makes you feel secure. Not having it makes you feel insecure. And then when you do get a lump of money after you've been insecure, then that the emotion goes like, I'm going to spend it to make myself feel better. And then you've got no money again. So it's very, very easy to get into a cycle, especially if you haven't been taught how to appreciate money, how to make money work for you, especially if you've never had it. It's, you know, um, so that for me that's the fundamentals. I grew up. Yeah, I made my kids negotiate for their increases in pocket money. Over the years. It wasn't just a case of like, right, okay, oh, you want an increase in pocket money? Gotta give me some good reasons. It's not just a case of like, hey, I'm your I'm your child. I'm older. I deserve more money. Come on, you need to do better than that. Because it's training them for the real world, you know.
That's really funny because in my, when you get married and the father of the bride does a speech
Yeah, yeah,
and they say stuff about you. My dad said, um, I he knew I would be a lawyer when I was 8. He said I decided that I wanted to rise in my pocket money, and he said after one of the toughest negotiations he'd had in his life, I got a 400% rise. And I thought that was very funny because I remember it.
yeah, yeah,
But yes, I had to negotiate for my pocket money, and that's when I found out I was actually quite good at negotiating.
yeah,
So yeah, my dad lost on that one.
yeah.
But yeah, I have never actually given my children pocket money.
Right.
They don't get any kind of allowance. They don't get any pocket money from me.
Right. Ever. They've never had it.
No,
How
no.
did how did they get money then?
I give it to them when they need it. So if they needed something, I would give them the money. So that
Right.
I didn't actually do that deliberately. I just we just never got to a point where I was giving them a budget or anything, and I don't know if that was a mistake. I haven't I haven't paid any consequences from that because it still works the same now.
Yeah, but everybody is different, and kids have got their own personalities, and some things are going to work for some people, and some things don't work for some people. So if that's worked, that's fine. But for me, I wanted to instill that, right, okay, you want something from me, right? Then you have to, I'm not just going to give it to you. You've got to work for it. But you've got to do something. You've got to persuade me, and that's not necessarily. It's not. It's in fact, it wasn't actually about the money. Then it's about I'm preparing you for later life when you're going to have to go into a situation and you want a pay rise, and you can't just go and go like, yeah, well, it's me, isn't it? Well, I mean, I do that now. I just go out, yay, hey, it's me. But you have to be able to go in and say, hey, these are the reasons why you should give me a pay rise.
Yeah. Um. So, but the point about money really is that it's your access to resources, isn't it?
Yes.
It's your access to things that you need or things that you think will make your life better.
Mm,
And so if you don't have that, and a lot of people don't,
mm,
then life is very difficult.
mm.
Um, and it's an interesting thing because I've been rich and I've been poor, and um, I, whether I was one or the other, I'm still me. But life is very, very difficult if you've got no resources. It's tough. There was one time, for example, when my window blew off because I'd opened my window and a big gust of wind took it off, and
Yeah.
I didn't have the money to get it fixed, so I
Mm,
had to put a wooden board over my window.
yeah.
And I thought, I don't like this. I actually want a window.
Yeah.
And when things go wrong like that, or you can't afford food, you know, life's really difficult, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's much
and and
harder.
and it affects the brain, and it affects the brain, and it affects decision making uh, processes. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the study. I'm trying to remember. It's like these. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I think it was near the Arctic, and they examined fishermen. There's a group of fishermen, and it was very seasonal work. So they would get, like 9 months of the year, there's no money. And then they get a massive influx of cash because, like, oh, it's fishing season. And then they examined their decision making compared to um, similar people who weren't that far away, but had a more, the cash flow was more even throughout the year. And they looked at their decision making, and it spiked, just like the income. It's like, okay, we're brassic right now, and then as soon as they get their money, they would just blow it all. So it does have a major impact on the brain and decision making.
I watched a documentary once. It was one of those awful sort of documentaries of, on those sort of reality type shows, and they put quite wealthy people. To, they they gave them people to go and live with who were totally broke,
Hmm.
and of course, the people who were normally rich were used to finding solutions to what they wanted to do
Hmm.
because they normally got resources.
Yeah.
And the people who were very, very skint that they had to go and stay with were not used to being able to sort things out because they had nothing, you know.
Hmm.
So their life, they were A, very tired, and
Hmm.
B, kind of not quite without hope, but it was very, very hard for them to think of things because normally they had nothing to do anything with.
Hmm.
So when they got someone who was wealthy and used to having money living with them, they were saying, "Oh, you could do this," and they were looking all sorts of different solutions because they're used to being
Hmm.
able to sort things out in their life, and they did actually help these people, not
Yeah.
by giving them money either. I think that's one of the sort
Yeah.
of the rules of the show kind of thing. But they came up with other ideas, but which these people hadn't thought of. Um, so, for example, there was a guy who didn't used to eat most days because he would feed his kids, and so he would just have a bit of whatever was left over. And this guy said to him, "Why don't you go and help do some catering at somewhere where they'll give you a meal?" And so he went, "Oh yeah, okay, I'll do that." And he went and helped some project or other,
Hmm.
and so consequently was getting another meal.
Yeah.
And then he had more energy because he had some food.
Hmm.
And but he hadn't been able to sort of think of that kind of thing, probably because he didn't know how to look it up. He didn't know how to find out about that kind of thing. So the rich guy's there on his phone going, "Oh yeah, you could do that here."
Yeah.
He was able to sort out problems. And I just thought, gosh, it didn't take all that much support and access to resources for that guy's life to be a little bit better,
Hmm.
for him to have a dinner.
Yeah. Well, actually, I would counter that with it did take a lot of resource to make his life better. So, for instance, if you break it down, like the rich person's come in and he's just gone like, you could look at this, and this, and just taps it on his phone. Yeah.
Yeah. This other guy didn't have a phone.
Yeah, he doesn't. The guy doesn't have a phone, and then there's the mental turmoil that the poor person's been through. He's been everything he's tried has been beaten down, beaten down, beaten down, beaten down, beaten down. A bit of like beaten down again, beaten down and beaten again. So the mental work and energy it takes just to get above, above sinking.
Yeah.
You that take 5 meals.
Yeah, well, the poor guy, and the poor guy was starving. He was
Yeah,
exhausted and
yeah,
starving.
yeah,
And that's in this country where
yeah.
people shouldn't be starving.
Yeah, what, the seventh richest country in the world, slipped down from six. So,
Yeah, yeah. But isn't that isn't that crazy? So this, but it illustrated how, um, this guy had just had nothing. He couldn't solve his problems. He had nothing to solve his problems with.
Yeah, but and because he's in a permanent state of stress.
Yeah, yeah. And he was a really nice, good man. He was trying to do his best for his kids. It
Yeah,
made me feel very sad, actually.
yeah. It's that thing between, there's is that flight or fright. It's just like, you can't do one or the other. You're just frozen because it's the constant bombardment. So, so yeah, actually, one person coming in and going like, you could just do this, 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 and this, sorted. But then it's another level of support for actually getting the guy to go like, okay, today's the day we found you something. Today's the day you're going to have to go and go to this new place to meet new people where you can volunteer, right? But then you've got to do a half decent job, otherwise you're not going to get the meal. So, there's you then think of like, okay, that's a whole rig of support that the guy needs
Yeah,
to whilst and also remember that the person, the rich person, is just like there. He then gets to go away and go back to his normal life
yeah.
with a good feeling. Ah, yeah. Well, I did my
Oh,
good
look
Samaritan.
at how I sorted out that guy's life for
They've
him.
been talking about it for years. Like, oh, hey, I just rocked up, tapped on my phone, did wonderful things. I'm out.
Yeah, savior complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it really did bring it home that when people are really, really pushed, um, their life is very, very difficult because they're exhausted,
Mm,
absolutely exhausted.
mm,
They've got no energy left because just doing basic things is so hard.
mm, mm.
And so that's what made me think. Um, there's some other studies, and I probably do have a book on this, but which show that you always go back to your default level
Mm.
of kind of how happy you are. So if you win £1 million on the
Yeah,
on the lottery or something,
yeah,
for a little while you
yeah,
feel really happy. You are
yeah,
chuffed.
yeah.
Um, but you soon return to wherever you were before.
Yeah.
I can't remember the concept that it's called.
Yeah, the converse is true as well. They've done the research. It's like, oh, I think they did it with like paraplegics who'd been in car accidents. Like, all right, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, like, oh, fine, not fine. Then a year later, like, they're the same level of happiness as they were before the accident.
Before the big event, so it
Yeah,
can go up or down.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it must take, if you are have a history of being poor, and then you then get into, say, for instance, this poor person who he's found a particular solution for that particular moment in time, because therefore there's that thing that that having that free meal for going to and helping out, those things tend to be time limited. What's going to prevent him from when that particular opportunity ends, him not slipping back to his default of hyper stressed, I can't do anything. So then it then comes, but a lot of support is then needed again to like raise him up again. So it is a vicious circle. It is a
yeah.
very circle.
It's actually quite mean to use that guy for TV, isn't it? Um, to sort of make out a hero story for a rich guy to walk in and solve
Yeah,
his problems.
yeah,
Because we know that it won't solve that guy's problems. He's still going
yeah.
to probably be
It's
having
going,
a
it's,
hard
it's
time.
going to it's going to be. I mean, that's a good starter, isn't it? To go like, oh, think in a different way. Oh, great. And then like 6 months later, all it takes is a little something happens like that particular project we could volunteer. It's it comes to an end, so he's back to square one. His children are getting bigger. They need they need a school uniform. Right, the little money he has got is knocked him back even further again. He hasn't got the bus fare to get to the place he was doing the catering, or it's been that catering place is on the telly now, so they're inundated, and they go
Yeah.
like, oh, like we've been on the telly now. We've got 25 people who want this, and like we want to help everybody, so we're not going to give you uh, be here for like a year. You can be here for like 2 weeks, and then we'll give somebody else an opportunity for 2 weeks. So he gets 2 weeks of levity, and then he's back.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
painting a quite depressing picture, really, aren't we?
We're not pessimistic people, though. We're hopeful
Well,
people. At least I'm a hopeful person.
yeah,
Um, I think you are as well.
yeah,
But um, but life is very, very, very tough on people with very few resources.
yeah, yeah,
It's incredibly hard,
yeah,
and the opportunities that you have
mm,
are are so limited if you've got nothing,
yeah.
and it's very hard to get out of it. And I think that's quite a problem because do you think that's going to impact on happiness or not?
Yes. Um, if you think about it, right, for there to be success, somebody somewhere on your family timeline has to put in the sacrifice. So, like for your children to be better than have been more successful than you, or my kids to be more successful than me, I've had to put in a sacrifice, you've had to put in a sacrifice, so they elevate, right? So somewhere along the line, and that for me, that's how I think of these things. But it's a risk. All these things are a risk. So you put the energy, you put the sacrifice, and it might not work. So imagine like, okay, you see an opportunity, you put all your eggs into that basket. That's the only opportunity you see, and it doesn't work. Or you put all that energy into the people around you, and the unwritten rule is, okay, you put your energy into them, they help you, and they don't do it. Just imagine that. You sacrifice for the wider family, right? And they're fine, then they don't call you anymore. Oh yeah, we're fine. Oh yeah, yeah. Ah yeah, we're not coming home to visit you.
Yeah.
And, but that gets back to the fundamentals. Like for I think about this, a lot. From my background, it's like okay, and you watch. I remember watching, this "Who Do You Think You Are" program, and it was Moira Stewart, I think it was, the newscaster, the black newscaster, like with the posh voice, and she traced her roots back to Jamaica, and it and it I can't remember exactly, but it was her grandmother or great grandmother was educated by a school teacher, and like just because like she took pity on her, and and it gave it gave Maura's grandmother the opportunity, and then she left Jamaica and came to the UK, and then there was that struggle there with like trying to elevate in the UK, and then she reaches the pinnacle, being a news presenter, but like it wouldn't have happened if there hadn't been a bit of good fortune, and then the person who received the good fortune then maximized. So
Yeah, well, when I think of my grandmother, she was one of four children in Newcastle upon Tyne, and they had one pair of boots between the four of them. So one of them would go to school every day because the others were too ashamed to go
uh,
to school without shoes on. So
mm,
one would go to school each day and then come home and teach the others.
mm,
And so that way they all got educated, and then she left Newcastle for London, and so consequently I grew up here in Buckinghamshire where I live now, and because they did that and they took that risk, um, that's served me very well because that meant at the time that I got to university. But then that is just a total story of social mobility, isn't it?
Yes.
Because they were working class poor, and then
Mm.
I've ended up, middle class university educated, and consequently so are my daughters.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not sure that that social mobility is available anymore, or is that not true? Are people trapped now if they were in my grandmother's position?
Well, all the studies show that disparity between rich and poor is greater now than it's ever been.
Hmm.
So I think that social mobility is far less. I mean,
That's what I'm worried about because I
also,
think now with university education, for example, not being free anymore,
yeah, I was
it's
just
it's.
about to come to that. I was just about to come to that. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, you carry on with what you were
Yeah,
going to
because I
say.
was just about to say exactly what you're saying about, the university not being what it used to be. I mean, in my parents and grandparents' time, it was like you go to university, job done, guaranteed wealth. You're moving up the ladder, the status, etc., etc., etc. Then, Tony Blair goes, 50% of people got to go to university, and we're charging you for it as well, for the privilege. You come out with massive debt, and the pay in, graduate jobs isn't all that. So, so yeah, that social mobility isn't there, isn't there.
Yeah, I don't see it. Um, but I just wonder if I'm being a bit pessimistic or something when I think that. I just think no, what people used to be able to do.
Mm.
I'm not sure that it's possible now.
I don't think it's possible either. I don't think it's possible. Or maybe it is possible, but like with everything, it's like the format changes. The
Yeah,
format changes because you know, for instance, an example of the format changing is young people always want to be the big shiny thing. So back in my youth, like, oh, want to be a kids want to be footballers. Yeah. Now,
never appealed to me.
now they want now, kids want to be influencers. Back in the day, people wanted to be pop stars. Now they want to be YouTubers. It's like that's the shiny thing. So it's a case of like, well, the desire doesn't change, but you've got to operate the way the world is, not necessarily the way you want the world to be. So what is the equivalent now? If your grandmother was now, what would be the equivalent of okay, not go, going to, you know, instead of everybody going to school once every 4 days, what is the equivalent of that to help elevate? There is for whatever people's situation, there is a
The aspirational
there's the
position.
aspiration, and there is a route. There is a we're level A and we want to get to level B. How do we get to level B? And it's different for everybody. But the old routes have closed down a lot, and then there aren't that many new routes.
Yeah,
So for instance, in the old days, you can go like, okay, there wasn't much work about. There was there are menial jobs, but you could get a menial job and you could go from one job to another from another job. Now there's plenty of menial jobs, but they're all 0 hours contracts, and there's no guarantee. So there is more work, but it's more unstable. So you
yeah.
can't plan. You can't go
No,
like,
my daughter has a 0 hours contract with her job,
hmm,
and she's in quite a fortunate position because she lives with us at the moment. So she's got no rent and no bills. So anything she earns, she gets to keep. So for her, it's not a desperate situation. It's inconvenient and annoying if her work suddenly gets cancelled, but she'll still have dinner.
yeah,
Whereas I think, my God, there's some people who will actually be relying on that.
hmm
And they suddenly get told, oh, you're not needed today. And they
yeah,
might have, sometimes she'll actually have driven to work, and then she turns up and she's only got an hour
yeah,
when she's supposed to be there for an 8-hour shift or something. And I think,
yeah,
my God, imagine if you were
yeah,
counting on that.
yeah,
Imagine you actually, I mean, for her, it helps her if she can save money, but as I say, she'll still have somewhere to live and she'll still eat. But
mm,
there will be people who are on that, who aren't in that fortunate position. And I just think, gosh, there must be so many people living on those 0-hour contracts things.
yeah,
That is just horrible.
yeah. And it affects, as we still talked earlier, it affects how people think. How do you go like, well, I'm going to do long-term planning. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to plan out the next 5 years. You just like you can't get to the end of the next week. At the end of the next week,
No, it's
I
quite
can't see the wood
shocking.
for the trees.
It's an incredible level of stress to live under.
Mm,
You can't plan anything.
mm.
So I don't know what. Um, I mean, can you still be happy if you're living like that with that level of uncertainty?
Um, right. Okay. Well, there's layers, isn't there?
I think you could have a very good sense of humour and cope with it like that. But I mean,
Yeah, but that's just a bit of levity, isn't it? Dark humor. You know, all that sort of thing. Like, if you worked in the mortuary, you'd probably be telling death jokes all day. You know what I mean? So, but there's layers, isn't it? Okay, there's like happiness, and then there's the stress that I suppose if you're generally a happy person, but you have all these layers of stress upon you, that will seep into your happiness and corrupt it.
I think
Definitely.
it would. I think it would because I think it would destroy your coping mechanisms
Mm,
of how you're getting through because it would be too much,
yeah.
be too high a level of stress. You said there are levels. What levels were you thinking of?
Well, I like to put scales in everything. You know,
You are a measurer. You are a
yeah,
measurer. I've
yeah,
learned a
yeah,
lot
yeah. So,
from
so
you.
it's like, your happiness is like 0 to 10, and you're naturally at a 7, and then you've got a certain level of stress. It's like, oh, I'm on a 0 hours contract. Oh yeah, but this week I made loads. So your happiness is just down to 6. Then the following week you got 1 hour's work, and then you got holes in your shoes. You're down to 1, and like, but if you're at that for like 6 months, yeah, even if you then got like, oh, they said to you, oh yeah, you've got like 3 weeks of like full-time work on the 0 hours contract. I think your happiness is still going to, your happiness will move up to 2. It's not going to move up to 7 because you always have you remember. It's like Pavlov's dogs, isn't it? It's like soon as you had to get onto that Uber Eats bike, that you'll just remember that time when you only have 1 hour's work. And it lives with you. And they all might, but it's that thing, isn't it? I think we mentioned it before. There's environment and there's your imagination, and they're the two key drivers. Because if you're constantly surrounded by a particular environment, it's very hard to break out of that unless you can imagine something else. So the rich person coming in with his phone can come in and go like, oh, did it, did it, did it, did it. And part of that is not just showing the opportunity, but getting the person to imagine a different world. Because remember I told you when I went to all inclusive holiday to Turkey, and when I was there, I saw I saw people who did not need another plate of cakes. if you're super large, super large, and you're on crutches because you're so large, and you've got another plate of cakes, sorry, sorry. But if that is because there was a lot of people like that in the hotel I was in, so if that you grew up in that environment and that's all you knew, it'd be very easy for that to be your default, and it would be really hard unless you had a crazy imagination, just like, oh, imagine if everybody worked out. Wow. Imagine if we only had one plate of cakes instead of five. Wow. It's that trying to, have a different imagination. And then, but how do you get your brain to think differently if you're constantly in a particular environment? And the only, I'm just, do you know what? This is outrageous. Because you know what I'm thinking now? I'm thinking I'm advocating drugs. I'm advocating drugs. Because
I know. I was going to advocate. It's stories. It's stories. That's the way out. It's
that's it.
stories. It's being able to tell yourself stories.
Yeah, you have to change your thinking. So how do you change your thinking, right? Because if you go if you how do you change your thinking? The easy thing to do, I'll just nip down the off license because that's easy because it's there.
Read a book.
Yeah. The I would point to actually, yes, read a book, but if we're actually talking about what's accessible for the average person in that situation, they're going to go like, all right, I'll watch a TV program. Right, that's a story in that. All right, okay. All right. Everybody around me to change their mode of thinking. The easiest thing to reach for is some, hallucinogenic, whatever, whether it be whatever tablet or whatever mind stuff it is. But we advocate stories.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to me that you said about drugs because I've always wondered why people take them. Um, but but now you've just sort of opened up to me that that's probably why people do it because obviously, me being me,
Yeah,
my obvious answer is read a book.
yeah, yeah. And, and,
Um,
and
but
and that's
I can see what you mean that another way to get out of your brain because that is what I'm doing when I'm reading
yeah,
books is I'm going to a different world and your
yeah,
brain actually doesn't know the difference
yeah,
between what you're reading in a book and what is real.
yeah.
So it's probably quite similar to tripping your nuts off.
Absolutely, absolutely. For the benefit of the tape, let's just use the phrase "tripping your nuts off." That will be on a house track, acid house track, coming to you very soon.
Just what is it that you want to do? We want to be free. We want to get loaded. We want to have a good time. Um,
But
yeah,
getting back to the story thing, right? Yeah. So people don't read as much as they used to.
mm,
Number one. Secondly, right? If you're going back to this person, their 0 hours contract, they come home after being super from traveling 8 hours to get to work, doing an hour's work, coming back home. They've lost money. They've done that 10 days in a row, right? They've had enough. They want instant relief. Instant relief. How are they going to get that? Is it from a bit of wacky backy, showing my age now, using the phrase wacky backy? I'm quite happy with to be in the tier of the old people, right? With this one, right? Like having some drink or something that's going to get them out of their way of thinking straight away, or are they going to go and read something? And bearing in mind, people aren't used to reading, and so something when you read a story, you have to think about it and digest it and go like,
not immediate. Yeah,
fine wine. Oh, yes, this paragraph. Oh, yes, hitting the marker. Oh, right, the narrative. Oh, right, that sentence there. Oh my gosh.
We're not going to do that.
Mm, that's some good Shakespeare there. What you do about nothing? I need some of that. Strong Othello stuff tonight. It's different.
But, but
Yes.
the immediate um, relief that people seek, and I completely understand why they seek it,
Mm,
that's not actually going to make them happy.
exactly.
It just gives them a bit of space, a
Yes.
bit of time off.
It's short-lived. It's short-lived. But remember, like I said earlier, is like decision making under stress goes out the window. So, you know, it's really hard to go, right, I'm super stressed. I need quick relief. This isn't going to work for me on a long term. I'm going to uh, do something else. I'm going to write a new story uh, from of my life, and I'm going to devise a strategy, and I'm going to stick rigidly to that, no matter the ups and downs for the next 5 years. And hopefully, at the end of 5 years, I will be out the other side. I can look back and go like, "Oh yeah, 5 years ago, it's a completely different space." That's
Yeah,
some trippy stuff right there. That's some trippy stuff right there.
yeah, but it's so difficult, isn't it? Because I think that if we if we were going to provide, there needs to be some provision to support people to make the moves that they need to do. I don't
Mm.
know how that can be done. We need to put our imaginations together.
Well, this is part of the role that I used to do as a careers advisor. I work with the 50 hardest to reach people in my area. And that is the challenge. Right, okay. Oh, you've been doing drugs all night and you want to sleep all day. Right, okay. I'm coming. I'm knocking on your door. Let's have a chat. Let's try and sort this out. Right, okay. You want to be of a different situation in life. Imagine 5 years' time. Oh, it's a bit stress. It's a bit stress, mate. Um, that, and then you have only a particular period of time, and then okay, you see them again in a week's time, and then in a week's time. But my time with that person is limited. So I'm trying to make a maximum change in a particular period of time and trying to bore down through the negativity to, let the happiness out. Like drilling for oil. It's like, okay, you got to go through the crust. You got to go through the outer layer. You got to get down to the inner layer and go like, all right, okay, that thing, that core of you, which is like happy, content, independent, right? We've got to bring that to the surface and keep it at the surface. How do we do that? Okay, imagine, imagine what Z is, and you're at A now, and on a good day when you're completely out of your head on drugs, you think you can think the level B or maybe C. But hey, I'm here now. Let's talk about this. Clear headed. What could Z look like? What could Z? How could you get to Z even when I'm not here?
Well, as you know, and people who are listening might know, I recently lost my brother to alcoholism. So this question is very poignant for me because I was not able to save him.
Mm,
I could not solve his problems, and I did try, and it didn't work. So it's really, really kind of poignant for me talking about this kind of thing because I totally failed to resolve that or to help him. So, I would like to be able to think of a way for other people to not suffer that.
mm. Yeah, but you can't beat yourself about it because you did not fail. You personally did not fail because everybody operates best of their ability at that particular moment in time. If you watch football and somebody takes a penalty, 9 times, and their record of scoring penalties is really high. It's never 100%, even if they got the best techniques in the world. Sometimes they miss, right? Sometimes the goalkeeper goes the wrong way or goes the right way and saves it, or they've got the great technique and the ball hits the bar. And you've done everything right. You've done the training. You had the technique. That particular day, it doesn't hit exactly how it needs to hit. So you did the best you possibly could under the circus. You probably did more than your family member, your brother. So you're going like, hey, you're connected. You know, as your close relative, you probably could get through to more than most people. And you tried, especially with your background with all the books, go like, hey, narratives, write a new story for you. Let's go. And you tried and you tried and you tried and tried and tried. But sometimes, no matter the best will in the world, a footballer takes a penalty, got 100, like a 95% record of scoring. Sometimes the ball hits the bar and there's nothing you can do about it. You did your absolute best. And sometimes you go like, okay, you did your best, but if you think about it, you might, it's a crazy way of looking at it, you might have actually, your intervention might have probably extended his life. Because
Yeah.
what happened to him might
I
happen
think
to him.
your son's going to have to deal with this, isn't he? Because as a doctor, he's going to have this, where
Yeah,
some days what he does won't won't work,
yeah,
or he won't be able to, because he'll be in it to try and help people,
absolutely.
and he won't always be able to.
Yeah. I mean, I remember having this conversation with him, was it last year, when his first person died on him.
Mm.
I just go like, yeah, well, and you just go like, hey, yeah, that's the job you're in. When you signed up for it, you knew this kind of thing might happen. What was going to happen,
And it will, yeah,
and it will happen, And so, one way of looking at it is like, can you, can you look at yourself in the mirror and go like, you did everything you possibly could? Yes, so you can sleep easy, you know, and you do your best you could at that particular time.
yeah,
And so that, remember, these things comes down to there's quality of life and there's length of life. So your intervention, the intervention of doctors, your intervention, highly likely that he lived longer than he might have done otherwise. I mean, I've got friends who've had close friends and relatives, um, who've drug addiction has caught them, and the similar situation to you, you've done everything you possibly could, still doesn't work out, and it's hard. It's really hard. But you can't attack yourself for it.
no, no. Well, it wasn't me making the choices,
Yeah.
but I think this is drawing it back to, we were sort of talking about the importance of money and what money means to people, or having resources,
Mm.
um, and it's whether it relates to happiness or not. And I think if you can get some decent resources and you can make good choices, then you're more likely to be happy. But if you never get the chance to have anything, then it's much more difficult, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you get rich people who are unhappy. It's like, and then you go like, but you've got loads of money. What is your what is your problem? You have a Rolls Royce
But
in the
they've
bed.
got no imagination. So I
No, no.
think what we're concluding, I think what we've come to today is that you need imagination. That's more important.
Yeah. That's it. Actually, the most important thing is imagination. And how do you get imagination long term, consistent long term results? Stories. There you go.
Stories.
There you go. There you go. Some people thought it couldn't be done. Some people thought that, hey, we're on tangents. How's it? How are they going to pull it back? That's what did I say at the beginning of the program? I said two legends, and what we do is legendary. Right there, right there. That's the evidence. That's the evidence. That's the evidence, right?
We've gone through the sad stories, and we've said basically you've got to have some imagination, and that will keep you going.
That will keep you going. So that's it. That's where we are. That's it for now. Happiness is easy. The end of this particular episode with the two legends, Dominic Nelson Ashley
And
and
Nicola Morgan.
Todd-Morgan. Yeah. Over and out.
Out.
All right, let's go. Things to
Take
do.
care. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.